Hey guys, good morning. My sinuses decided to have a party again today. It's like every other day. So we are back with the Phil Spector trial again. Hey Judy, hey Nancy. We are on part 2 of, I forgot her name, Kathy. I forgot her name. The waitress that, I'm fine. It's just my sinuses, my allergies again. It's spring. The waitress that was Phil Spector's friend that went to the that went to the House of Blues with him, and then he sent her home. This is part 2, and I can't remember if she was done with her direct and we're getting into cross, or if they started cross. Hey Terry. I don't remember, but we'll find out. They have spent a lot of time. Kathy Sullivan, that's her name. They spent a lot of time on her.
Just so we can pick up where we left off, had you at the point in your testimony where you had arrived at the House of Blues with Mr. Spector. You had left Antennas. It was approaching the closing hour, the witching hour, and as I understand, Mr. Spector got out of the vehicle. You went.
That's correct.
Okay. And then, as I understand your testimony, in order to get upstairs, and let me back up here a moment. Am I correct that the foundation room, it's not on the first floor or the second floor, it's up on the third floor, correct?
Yes.
And am I also correct that within the foundation room, there is another private room called the Buddha room? Is that correct also?
That's correct.
Okay. So then, as I understand it, this gentleman, he escorted you and Mr. Spector up from the first floor through the stairwell up to the third floor where the foundation and Buddha rooms are located. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And I think you told us that Mr. Spector had no trouble getting upstairs whatsoever.
No.
Okay. Am I correct also that when he got upstairs and you got upstairs, you walked the 3 flights of stairs, he thanked the employee who escorted the 2 of you up there. Isn't that right?
I do recall that.
Okay. So you're now in the foyer, the area where the foundation room is. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, as I understand it, you have never testified previously in the grand jury. Is that correct?
No, I haven't.
Never saw the grand jury, right?
No.
Okay. This is the first time you're giving testimony under oath in this case, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's pick up from the point where you are now in the entryway area of the third floor, about to go into the foundation room. And as I understand it, somebody approaches. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And who was it that was approached, or who approached?
It was Ms. Clarkson.
Okay. Had you ever met Ms. Clarkson before? You had not, had you?
No, I hadn't.
And as far as you know, Mr. Spector had never met Ms. Clarkson
No,
previously.
it didn't appear so.
We gotta
Sorry.
not talk at the same time, or Diana will take my tie and hoist me up at the end of the day, okay? It's called sounding and it's very difficult. So let me just finish my question and I'll let you finish your answer. As far as you knew, Mr. Spector had never met Lana Clarkson previously, is that right?
That's right.
He had never spoken to you about her, right?
No.
Okay. By the way, when you got up to the third floor area, there's a door there before you go in, isn't that correct?
Yeah, I can't remember if it's a door or an archway. It's definitely a room off of a hallway.
Okay, and as I understand it, Mr. Spector opened that door for you, correct?
I guess he did. I just don't remember the door.
Okay. At any rate, you enter into the foyer area. Ms. Clarkson comes up, and Ms. Clarkson says something to Mr. Spector, doesn't she?
She does.
What does she say?
She said that we couldn't come in
Okay. And did she indicate to you why you couldn't come in?
because we didn't have any badges on and it was a private party.
All right. And she informed you of that, is that correct?
Yes, she did.
And as I understand it, Mr. Spector said to Ms. Clarkson that all he wanted to do was use the restroom, right?
Correct.
All right. And you needed to use the restroom also, correct?
Yes, I did.
So both of you went to the restroom and Ms. Clarkson permitted that, is that right?
Yes.
Let me ask you, how was Ms. Clarkson dressed that evening? Do you recall?
I just recall a lot of black.
Okay. And do you recall how she had her hair that evening?
Her hair was down.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And did you notice anything unusual, say like any type of jewelry or anything of that nature?
Did not notice at all.
Okay. So she informs you can't come in because it's a private party and no badges are being worn. And you and Mr. Spector used the respective restrooms. And then I would understand you came back together again after using the restroom. Is that a fair statement?
I came back after him.
Okay. He had already used the restroom previously.
Correct.
And where was he?
In the doorway.
All right. And did you join with him in the doorway?
Yes, I did.
And was Miss Clarkson there at that time?
Yes.
And then what happened?
There was another man that had approached her and was whispering something. And at that point, she said we could come in.
Okay. The gentleman that approached her, was this a black gentleman?
Correct.
And there was something distinguishing about this gentleman with his hair?
He had dreads.
Okay. When you say dreads, you mean he had dreadlocks?
Correct.
Okay. And you observed him speaking with Miss Clarkson, is that correct?
I did.
All right. And after he spoke with Miss Clarkson, she brought you and Mr. Spector into the foundation room, is that correct?
Yes, she did.
Where did she take you to? Where did she escort you to?
Upstairs to a little room.
All right. And how long did it take you? What was the distance between the front door area, the foyer area where you and Mr. Spector met and the little room where she took you to? Are we talking about 10 feet, 20 feet? What is the distance?
Probably from here to the table.
It's about 11, 15 feet, depending upon where what point of the table it is.
Okay. When you say the table, you mean council's table?
Correct.
Mr. Jackson, Mr. Dixon's table?
Yes.
All right. And it's dark in there, I assume?
Very dark.
Okay. And when you got over to that particular point in the room, then what happened?
We went up a short flight of stairs.
All right. 3 or 4 steps, something like that?
I guess. I
Okay.
don't recall the number.
And once you negotiated the stairs, then where'd you go to?
We were in the room.
All right. And is Miss Clarkson still with you?
Yes, she was.
And she's escorting you, correct?
Yes.
And once you got up the 3 or 4 flights of stairs, then what happened?
We sat down on the couch.
All right. And did Miss Clarkson lead you to the couch, escort you to the couch?
I believe she did.
By the way, the 3 or 4 steps that you had to negotiate to get up to the little room, Mr. Spector walked up those steps, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
And he didn't fall down, did he?
No.
Didn't slip, correct?
Correct.
And didn't stumble?
Nope.
Okay. And so you get to the couch, and what happens when you get to the couch?
The cocktail waitress appeared and asked us what we wanted to order to drink.
Before she appeared, do you recall Miss Clarkson saying to both of you, if you need anything, I'm Lana, this is last call, just let me know?
Yes, she did.
Okay. Let me ask you this, after Miss Clarkson Oh, we'll strike that. After the gentleman with the dreads spoke to Miss Clarkson, did you note any difference, any discernible difference in the way she spoke to you and Mr. Spector?
Yes.
What did you notice?
Well, the dialogue was always very professional, but it was now much more friendly and welcoming.
From Miss Clarkson towards you and Mr. Spector, is that
Correct.
correct? Okay. You don't know what this gentleman said to Miss Clarkson. All you know is he spoke to her, and then there was a much more friendly attitude towards the two of you by Miss Clarkson than previous to him speaking with her. Is that correct? Is that a fair statement?
To clarify, she was never unfriendly.
Correct. Professional.
Correct. It's just, it was much more welcoming.
I understand. Okay. And the waitress comes up, I think you said, or the server?
Yes.
What is the politically correct term? Help me.
I prefer waiter, but
Waiter.
I guess server.
Okay. The waiter comes up and did you know her?
No.
What does she say when she comes up?
She asked Philip what he wanted to drink.
Okay. And did Philip place an order?
He did.
He asked for rum,
He
correct?
did.
And did you place an order?
I asked for water.
Okay. And after you asked for water, what happened, if anything?
It appeared to me that he was clued in that I was ready to leave.
Okay.
So
Actually, you were very ready to leave, weren't you?
I was ready to leave.
You were exhausted.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. And you were tired.
I was exhausted.
So what happened?
He said, okay, you want to go? I'll have.
She wanted her door open. She went in the room. She is not in the litter box or eating her food. She is staring at me through the crack in the door. You know, like where the door opens, where the hinges are, the little crack. She's staring at me through that crack. She's not doing anything, any cat things in the room. She's just staring at me through the crack. She just wanted the door open. She's a little brat.
Have my driver take you home.
Okay. And you were very pleased to hear that, weren't you?
I was very happy.
In fact, we were sitting out on the bench here this morning chatting, and you indicated to me that if you knew that all you had to do was order a bottle of water to get home earlier, you would have done it earlier in the evening, correct?
I probably would have.
Okay. And did you then leave at that point?
I did.
Okay. Prior to you leaving, as I understand it, there was a point where Lana came over because Philip was going to ask her to escort you downstairs to the driver and the car, correct?
Correct.
And as I understand it, when that happened, Philip actually touched Lana Clarkson on the wrist area. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And after that happened, Lana and you left, as I understand it, the foundation room to go downstairs. Is that right?
Yes.
Were you able to take the elevator, or did you and Lana have to walk down?
We walked down the stairs.
The same set of stairs that you used to gain entrance into the foundation room earlier with Mr. Spector?
Yes.
All right. And when you and Lana walked downstairs, did Lana actually walk you over to Mr. Spector's vehicle and the driver?
Yes, she did.
Was the driver there?
Yes.
And it was still Adriano
Yes.
and the gentleman who you knew from the grill?
Yes.
And as I understand it, at some point you felt a little bit uncomfortable and embarrassed that Lana was doing this, and you said something to her, didn't you?
I did.
You said something to her about her escorting you to the vehicle, right?
Yes.
And tell the jury, what was it you said to her?
I said, you don't have to do this.
And Lana responded, oh, yes, I do, didn't she?
Correct.
In a very affirmative way, correct?
Yes.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate. So I take magnesium to support my muscle and bone health.
I don't know why some days there are none. And other days there are oodles of them. I don't understand it.
Before you left, I understand you thanked Mr. Spector for the evening. Is that correct?
I did.
And am I correct in saying that you kissed him, gave him a little squeeze, thanked him very much, and left?
I did.
And you asked him if he was going to stay,
I did.
and Mr. Spector nodded yes in the affirmative.
Yes, he did.
Okay. You testified on direct that Mr. Spector spoke, I believe, to the waiter and indicated at some point that he wanted her to get Lana to come over, correct?
Yes.
This was not an order or command. It was more in the sense of an instruction, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. It wasn't done in a nasty way.
It was blurted out. I guess it depends how she did it.
Okay. Was she there?
She was.
Okay. Did she, to what you observed, it didn't appear to you that she was offended, did it?
Objection, that calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Okay. Ms. Sullivan, am I correct? You never saw the drinks being served that night, isn't that right?
No, I didn't.
And when you and Ms. Clarkson got down to the vehicle, Mr. Spector's vehicle, where the driver was waiting, Adriano, Ms. Clarkson said something to Adriano, didn't she?
She did.
And she said it very forcefully to him, didn't she?
Yes.
May I have the court's indulgence for a moment, please?
Yes.
Would it be a fair characterization, Ms. Sullivan, to say that during the entire exchange with Lana Clarkson and Mr. Spector, he was very calm and he was very respectful?
Yes.
You had no
This whole thing still confuses me. Didn't it seem like the night that Lana Clarkson went to his house, didn't they make it sound like that was the very first night he'd ever met her? Because she didn't know who he was, and they were like, treat him as if he was Dan Aykroyd. Because Dan Aykroyd is the partial owner of the House of Blues. So in other words, that meant treat him like he was a very, very, very important person. But if this happened before that night, then they'd already met. So I'm a little confused as to how she didn't know. Did I mishear that? Or were you guys under the same impression that that was the first time they'd ever met? I don't know. Could be just me. I don't know.
impression that evening that Mr. Spector was in any way attempting to be romantic with you. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
Okay. This was very respectful.
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that Mr. Spector he's a quiet man. He's a private man. That's a fair description, isn't it?
Objection.
What's the objection?
It calls for speculation as phrased.
I don't believe so. She's asked to offer her opinion based on her knowledge and relationship with the defendant. The objection is overruled. You may answer.
He'd become very good over the years.
Okay. You did not consider that evening, February 3rd, to be a date. It was more or less getting together with an old friend for a drink, correct?
Correct.
since you left before anything was served by the waiter, I'm going to assume that you saw no alcohol consumption at the House of Blues. Am I right?
Yes.
And finally, there was nothing that occurred in that evening and into the morning hours, the time, those hours that you spent with Mr. Spector. You never at any time felt threatened by him, did you?
No, I didn't.
And you didn't feel that you were afraid by him in any way, did you?
No, not at all.
Court's indulgence for a moment,
All
please.
Why did they call this woman?
When Miss Clarkson was downstairs where the vehicle was and Adriana was at the vehicle, you indicated that she forcefully expressed to him that he needed to take you home, correct?
Correct.
And she also went on to indicate to take you home quickly and then return for Mr. Spector, isn't that right?
She repeated exactly what Philip had said to her.
Okay, do you remember can you do a rendition of that at this time, or?
Have Adriano take Kathy home and make sure he brings back the car.
And that's what she shared with Adriano.
Correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you so very much. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Sullivan, on cross-examination, you were asked whether or not Lana Clarkson's attitude, if you will, toward you and Mr. Spector changed after she was spoken to or apparently spoken to by another staff member at the House of Blues. I want to follow up on that very briefly. Would you consider her to have been very professional toward yourself and Mr. Spector at your first meeting?
Yes.
Even after this other staff member spoke with Ms. Clarkson, would you consider her to have been friendly, welcoming, and professional even after that?
Yes.
So in other words, there was nothing overtly improper about her attitudes toward Mr. Spector even after she was spoken to by this African-American gentleman, correct?
Correct.
You considered her to be professional in her job,
Yes.
professional in her demeanor,
Yes.
professional toward you,
Yes.
professional toward Mr. Spector.
Yes.
Was there any time during the course of the evening when you were in Ms. Clarkson's presence along with Mr. Spector that you found her to be anything other than professional?
No.
You also indicated that in response to one of Mr. Rosen's questions that the defendant appeared to, I think to use your words, blurt out that he wanted Lana Clarkson, or Lana, I think in his words, brought over immediately, correct?
That's correct.
You paused when Mr. Rosen asked you to describe his demeanor when he blurted this out. You paused and used the word blurt out.
The nowhere, and we're forceful.
Forceful in a demanding way?
It was get Lana.
Did it appear that Mr. Spector was being demanding at that point?
No.
Well, was he commanding someone to go get Lana right now?
Oh, yeah.
Did it appear that Mr. Spector was adopting the attitude, whenever you get around to it, if you see her, maybe you might want to have her stop by here? Or is it something other than that?
It was other than that.
It was, go get Lana, go get her now. I want her now, correct?
It wasn't as mean as you're saying it.
Well, I'm not trying to
I
put
know.
words in your
I know.
mouth. I'm trying to get an idea between the first example, whenever you get around to it, maybe you might want to have her stop by, and go get Lana. Which one is it?
Well, Your Honor, I'm going to object. It's a leading and suggestive question. She described it now 3 times, once on the original direct, once on the cross, and now on the redirect.
I don't think it was leading or suggestive because it gave the witness different scenarios to agree with, but it doesn't have to be limited to those. I'll sustain the objection, rephrase the question.
Certainly. Would you consider that blurt, and I'm trying to use your words because I'm having trouble coming up with anything of my own. Would you consider the defendant's blurt, get Lana, to be a command, do it now?
Yes.
All right. The instruction was forceful.
Yes.
The instruction was assertive.
Yes.
Was the instruction followed?
Yes.
Dang it. Oh, come on, StreamYard. Nobody wants to watch this. I know you guys are only seeing me now, but for some reason on StreamYard, I can still see this. There it goes. I'm sorry. I have little respect for these women that's going out with this guy just because he has money and they're letting him pay for them to go out to all these nice places. Ew. Just because you want to go to nice places, you're just gonna go out with this creepy guy. What are you doing, Court TV? Great. It got stuck again. Don't make me reboot you. Dang it, Court TV. Up the website. And now it's buffering. Which means it's probably going to crash. Yeah, that too. I mean, it's nice to have friends with money. I mean, I wouldn't know, but but then you have to be discerning. Like just cuz somebody has money doesn't mean that's a good reason to be friends with them. Quit buffering. I'm trying to figure out where we were. Sorry, guys. Like I said, I wish this was on YouTube. Yay, I found where we were. Now I just have to share it. Oh, wait, it says I'm already sharing. Well,
Events you were at, seeing Mr. Spector command or demand something.
Objection, vague.
Overruled. You may answer if you can.
He would ask for things and he always got them.
Okay. In this case, there was no question mark at the end of that sentence. Would you go get Lana, please? Was it?
No.
It was go get Lana.
Yes.
All right. When Lana Clarkson followed you or escorted you down to the Mercedes, you indicated that Ms. Clarkson was somewhat forceful, I think was your word, in instructing Adriano D'Souza or Adriano to drop you off and come back for Mr. Spector, correct?
Correct.
Did you also indicate that she was repeating exactly what Mr. Spector had commanded?
Yes.
So was the forceful nature of her command toward Adriano the same as the forceful nature of Mr. Spector's command to Lana?
No.
Which was more forceful?
Phil's.
Again, when you saw this interaction between Ms. Clarkson and Adriano, was she professional?
Yes.
Was she courteous?
Yes.
Mr. Rosen asked you about the nature of your relationship with Philip Spector from 1997 to 2003. You indicated that you only saw him, I think you said 5 or 6 times during that period, correct?
Correct.
So it's safe to say that you averaged seeing Mr. Spector socially about once a year or so.
Those 6 outings were all in the same probably year.
All right, so help me out. If you only saw him if you met him in 1997, is that yes?
Yes.
Okay, and the last time you saw him was 2003. That's a period of approximately 6 years, correct?
Correct.
What was the time span in which you spent most of those 6 occasions?
From 97 through 98, maybe a little bit into 99,
Okay,
but I doubt it. It was 98.
and you usually saw him during those 6 occasions with Susanna, is that correct?
That's correct.
As a matter of fact, with the exception of February 2nd, 2003, you had only seen him exclusively with Susanna, correct?
That's correct.
You had never been out with him by yourself previously.
Correct.
And am I safe in doing the math that you had not seen Mr. Spector in 3 or 4 years socially at the time that you saw him on February 2nd, 2003?
That's correct.
You didn't date him?
Nope.
Would you describe your relationship with him as casual,
Yes.
friendly?
Yes.
Would you describe it as boyfriend-girlfriend?
Nope.
Not even close, correct?
Not even close.
You never, quote unquote, dated the man, did you?
No, I didn't.
I think we've covered it. You can move forward.
Did you, during your, I can't remember if it was on direct examination or cross-examination. I know Mr. Rosen touched on this. You indicated that Mr. Spector and Mr. Spector's and your relationship was closer to that of father-like than it was boyfriend-like, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Are you describing the age difference between yourself and Mr. Spector, or the level of intimacy that you had with him?
Both.
You would say that you were as close to Mr. Spector as you are to your father?
Oh, okay. All I can say is that when Susanna and I were with him, he just seemed to get a kick out of us.
And that was in 1997, 1998, maybe into 1999, correct?
Yes.
I want to be clear so that I don't misunderstand you. You're not describing, when you said the word father or father-like, you're not describing the level of closeness that you have with Mr. Spector as even coming anywhere near that of a daughter and a father, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You knew Rami Davis from the restaurant and Mr. Spector having brought her in, correct?
That's correct.
Were you aware of the nature of their relationship?
Not really, no.
Were you aware that they had known each other since high school?
Susan told me.
Were you aware that they had a dating relationship?
It seemed like it. They were in the restaurant together.
So you were also aware that they had known each other socially for a vast period of time,
Yes.
that they knew each other relatively well,
Yes.
that they had a close relationship,
Yes.
that they dated several times a month for several months before February of 2003.
I'm going to sustain the objection.
I'm also going to move straight to the last answer.
The answer may stand, but I've sustained your objection.
What was your impression of how often Miss Davis and Mr. Spector dated in the months leading up to February 2nd, 2003?
Objection, go on and see.
Sustained.
Were you aware, or did you and Mr. Spector discuss the fact that Rami Davis had gone out with Mr. Spector on Friday night and Saturday night before the Sunday that you saw him?
No.
Withdraw.
Would you agree that someone that had a relationship with Mr. Spector, such as I've suggested, someone dating Mr. Spector on a weekly basis for several months, had a closer relationship than you did with Mr. Spector?
I'm going to object to that. That's completely speculative, without foundation.
I think that's more appropriate for argument. The objection is sustained.
Thank you.
Do you believe, as you sit here, that Ms. Davis would have a better idea of Mr. Spector's moods and demeanor than you might?
Objection calls for speculation, no
The
foundation.
objection is sustained.
In direct examination, you indicated that Mr. Spector normally, this was cross-examination, normally ordered Diet Cokes. Is that right?
That's right.
Did it stand out in your mind when you walked over to say hi to Mr. Spector that evening that he had what appeared to be a highball or a cocktail in front of him?
Yeah. Yes.
Why?
I did.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Why was that unusual for you?
Because I had heard that he was no longer drinking.
Objection, what was
This only goes, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't necessarily introduced for the truth of the matter asserted. It's to explain the witness's conclusion, and for that only, and you will be so limited. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just go ahead and finish that thought if you wouldn't mind.
I had heard that he had stopped drinking since I had hung out with him.
All right. Did he drink when you hung out with him?
Well, most of the time we see him in the afternoon, so no.
Okay, so in those 5 or 6 times that you had seen him socially before 2003, you had not been out with him on an evening where everybody is drinking heavily or getting drunk or anything like that?
I had seen him drink on 2 occasions.
Okay. Was it to excess?
Only once.
And when was that?
I don't know the date.
Okay, give me an idea of the year.
I don't know the year.
It would've-
Sometime in 97,
Okay.
between that and 98.
Okay. And what were the circumstances, if you recall, what were the circumstances surrounding that one particular evening?
Susan and I went over to his house pretty late at night.
And what happened?
We brought a pizza, and I think we brought a bottle of wine. I know we drank wine, and I think we brought it.
What was Mr. Spector drinking?
I don't know, but it was something else.
Did Susanna stay with you and Mr. Spector the whole time?
Yes.
And did you stay with Susanna and Mr. Spector the whole time? In other words, the three of you were there. It was never you alone with Mr. Spector or Susanna alone with Mr. Spector.
No.
How much alcohol was consumed, if you remember?
And I'm going to object to Rollins and Grants.
Overruled.
And also beyond the scope of cross.
I'll allow the district attorney to reopen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Go ahead.
Quite a bit.
Give me an idea. I mean, the whole bottle of wine between the three of you, or?
No, I would say that she and I killed the bottle of wine.
Okay. And what was Mr. Spector drinking?
I don't know.
It's asked and answered. She already said she doesn't know.
I'll allow some further inquiry. The objection's overruled.
Do you recall what he was drinking?
I don't.
Okay. Do you recall if it was a liquor or a wine?
It was a liquor.
And you may have answered this. You don't recall how much. You just recall that he was drinking along
Correct.
with you and Suzanne.
Correct.
All right. At some point during that evening, did you ask Mr. Spector to leave?
No.
As a matter of fact, did you hear Susanna ask Mr. Spector if she could leave?
No.
So if you didn't leave, where'd you stay?
We stayed there.
Did you stay with Mr. Spector in his room?
No.
Did Susanna stay with Mr. Spector in his room that you know?
No.
Were each of you given your own rooms?
Yes.
And neither one of you asked to leave during the course of the evening?
No.
When did you leave?
The next morning.
Now, on this particular night, February 2nd, going into the morning hours of February 3rd, you were aware that Mr. Spector had a drink at the grill, correct? At least saw one drink on the table, correct?
Correct.
Based on your experience in the restaurant business, would you know a daiquiri if you saw one?
Yes.
Did it look like a daiquiri?
Yes.
Okay, that would be consistent with your review of that receipt that we showed you
Yes.
last Thursday.
Yes.
Do you know how many daiquiris he had at the grill?
I don't until I saw the receipt.
Okay, which indicated 2, correct?
Correct.
And you also indicated that Mr. Spector ordered 2 Navy Grogs at Trader Vic's, correct?
Correct.
Based on your experience in the restaurant business, do you know what the recipe at Trader Vic's is for a Navy Grog?
I'd never heard of that before.
Okay. You knew it was alcoholic, however.
I assumed.
Okay. He also ordered 2 drinks for himself at Dantana's, is that right?
Yes.
Do you recall those being daiquiris as well?
They were.
All right. And finally, I think Mr. Rosen touched on this. You heard him order rum at the House of Blues, is that right?
That's right.
Did he call his liquor at the House of Blues rum Bacardi 151 or just say, give me rum straight up?
He said just rum.
And you did indicate that you and Mr. Spector ordered a salad before you got to the House of Blues at Dantana's, is that right?
That's right.
Do you know how much of that salad Mr. Spector actually ate?
Not much. He gave me the leftovers, so I took it home.
As a matter of fact, did you indicate, you took some notes about this evening after you had heard that Lana Clarkson had been killed in Mr. Spector's home, correct?
That's correct.
And that was to refresh your recollection about the events of the evening?
That's correct.
Why did you take those notes down?
I was actually advised by a friend because they said that I would probably be getting contacted.
And eventually you were
I
contacted?
was, yeah.
Do you remember indicating that Mr. Spector actually just nibbled, quote, using your words, at the salad, whereas you, quote,
I
ate with an exclamation point,
Yep.
correct? All right. You did not see Mr. Spector leaving the House of Blues, correct?
No, I did not.
I have a funny story about what's it called? B151. There's a shot called a 150 B151 bomber, I think is what it's called. My cousin and my friend and I went to see Janet Jackson in Orlando. This was back in the 90s. I was in my 20s. And we went to see Janet Jackson, and then afterwards we went to Pleasure Island. Disney had this, it was like a nightclub complex. I think there were like 9 clubs. And so it's like one cover fee to get into all these clubs. And there's a street connecting all of them. So there's like street dancing and street partying in the street. And then these 9 clubs. I don't know why they closed it down. We went every weekend. I had an annual pass. We went every weekend. They had a country club. There were like 2 comedy clubs. There was a new age. We went to the 80s beach club. They played all different music from like the 70s up through current. It was amazing. So the dance floor, so it's called the beach club. The dance floor looked like an empty swimming pool. So like the tables and everything, you were like up around the swimming pool looking down into the dance floor with a swimming pool. It was so cool. And so the stage was up like the deck of the swimming pool, I guess. So we went there after we went to see Janet Jackson. And there used to be, it's not there anymore, but at Universal there was a show, and it was Beetlejuice's Graveyard Musical Review or something like that. I don't know. So we are dancing and, goofing off, having a good time. And we met this guy, and he told us that he played Beetlejuice in that. And we were like, no, you don't. And he did the whole opening spiel with the Beetlejuice voice and everything. And we were like, oh my God, you really are Beetlejuice at the thing. And so we started talking to this guy. For some reason, he wants to buy me a shot. So yeah, it's kind of like Church Tree Station, which that's not there anymore. They I don't know what they did, but I heard that it's not there anymore. Probably because of City Walk is now at Universal, and they don't have Pleasure Island anymore at Disney, but they have Disney Springs, where it's similar. They have nightclubs and stuff and shopping and all that there. And then City Walk at Universal, nightclubs and shopping and all that there. So I think all of that shut down Church Street Station. So anyway, so this guy wants to buy me a shot. Now I'm a lightweight. I don't do shot. For number one, I can't like down a shot. I've never been able to. I sip them. I can't. So turns out this kid, I mean, I was in my 20s, so he wasn't a kid to me then. He's a kid to me now. And I think anybody that young to me now is a kid, but he wasn't old enough to purchase the shot. So I actually had to buy, order it myself, but he bought it for me because he wasn't 21 yet. And so this B-51 bomber, I sipped on it. It was good. And I sipped on it. But like a half an hour later, I was on fire. And it started here, and then here, and then here, and it was gradually fire. It was like a delayed effect. And I was like, oh my God, I am on fire. What do I do? Because I'm not a drinker. And it didn't really, I wasn't getting like a huge buzz or anything from it. It was more the fire. Like, what? And of course, I don't want my night to be ruined. We just saw an awesome concert. Janet Jackson is amazing in concert. Shaquille O'Neal was there because it was in Orlando when he played for Orlando, and she brought him up on stage, sang to him. She came up to like here on his chest. And, you know, and then we were out partying afterwards. And like, that is the most partying I've ever done in my life, because I wasn't a partier either. Having a great time, probably one of the best nights of my life ever. And now I'm on fire. Like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So my friends had finished her drink. She's like, go in the bathroom and fill this with water, drink the whole cup, and then fill it again. And so the rest of the night, I'm just chugging water. And finally the burning went away. I was like, thank you, thank you, thank you. I was like, I did not know what to do. I was just like, I'm on fire. I'm on fire. I'm on fire. And I don't think I've had a shot of anything since. It was awful. I will never, ever drink 151 rum. Ever, ever, ever again. That stuff will burn the crap out of you. Oh my God. Oh, Nancy. Oh, never again. Never. I will never, ever. Never, never, ever, ever.
Were you ever with him at his house later that morning on February 3rd?
Nope,
Do you know how much he had to drink at the House of Blues?
I do not.
Do you know how much he had to drink at the castle later that morning?
Sustain.
You don't know, or you can't testify to the defendant's state of inebriation when the House of Blues, can you?
Overruled. Overruled. You may answer.
No, I cannot.
I think it goes without saying, Ms. Sullivan, that you do not know, you can't testify to his state of inebriation once at the house, once at his castle, correct?
Objection, no foundation.
Since it does go without saying, let's not say it. Sustain.
Touche, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right. Before you, I think Mr. Rosen touched on this just a little bit, and then I just have a couple more questions. Before you went to Dantana's, you insisted on moving your car, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And you moved your car from where it was parked at, or close to the grill, back over toward your place, your residence in, is that Hollywood?
West Hollywood.
West Hollywood. Why was it important to you to move your car that night, Ms. Sullivan?
Objection was asked and answered on direct and cross.
I'll allow it. Because it was answered on cross, it may be gone back into and redirect. You may answer the question.
Well, I suggested that I drive my own car because Dantana's is en route to where I live. And then I knew I could leave when I wanted because I had my own car. And Mr. Spector said, well, that's okay. We'll just follow you and we'll all go together.
Was it important to you to move your car because you wanted to make sure you had access to it later?
That, and I did not want to leave it in Beverly Hills.
Because you might need it the next day?
Right, or could get towed, ticketed.
And you would obviously have to then get it out of impound?
Yes.
You might need it the next week?
Yes.
You might need it the next month?
Yes.
In other words, to live your life normally, you need your car, correct?
Yes.
And you insisted
Objection
on,
on relevancy.
I think we're getting to we're sort of belaboring the obvious. Sustain.
Your Honor, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Recross.
Thank you.
Just when you thought you were out of here, huh? Okay. When Mr. Spector asked Lana to accompany you downstairs, he used the word please, didn't he?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay. You recited for us what Ms. Clarkson said to Mr. DeSouza and Adriano downstairs at the car, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And let's revisit for a moment some of the things Mr. Jackson spoke to you about here. Let's start with the grill. As you sit here today, you cannot testify what Mr. Spector's consumption of any kind of beverage was at the grill because you weren't waiting on him and you weren't monitoring him, correct?
That is correct.
When you indicated that he ordered a daiquiri at the grill, it was based upon what we had up on the screen last week from the ticket, right?
Well, no, I observed it when I went over to say hello.
On the table.
Correct.
But you never saw him drink from it, correct?
No,
So you don't know if he had one sip or if he had the entire drink, correct?
that's correct.
All right. Now, Mr. Jackson took you through a historical trip here regarding the different places that you were with Mr. Spector and what was ordered at the different locations, correct?
Correct.
Zachary's at the grill, the drink called the Navy Grog at Trader Vic's, Dantana's daiquiris, and then ultimately getting to the House of Blues, which you aren't able to cast any light on because you left before anything was served, right?
That's right.
As I understand it, Mr. Spector arrived at the grill that evening, or the evening before, excuse me, February 2nd. About what time? Do you recall? About 7, 8, somewhere in there?
I honestly have no idea what time he arrived. I was very busy and did not see him get sat.
Okay. Is there any way, and just take a moment, is there any way you can reconstruct in your mind approximately when you first saw him there or when you went over to the table to extend greetings to him?
There's absolutely no way.
Okay. If I suggested somewhere in the 7 to 8 o'clock p.m. area, does that sound about right to you? Tell you what, let me withdraw. Let me see if I can help you. You got it, yes. Let's put the receipt back up on the screen. And there are some times on it, and maybe that will help you, okay? Zero in on the time there, Jim, please. I appreciate it. We'll blow that up a little bit so Ms. Sullivan can see that. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so blowing that up, it appears to show the date of February 2nd, 2003 at the time, 10:17 p.m. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Now, as I understand it, and you're familiar with this because you're a waiter at the grill, that date and number tells us what date the ticket was written and filled, correct?
Correct.
And the time that the ticket came out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Would it be fair to say, and I know you were busy that evening, you were working, it was a Sunday night, the girl was usually busy on a Sunday night, but would it be, sometimes mom, huh? Okay, would it be fair to say that Mr. Spector was at least there a couple of hours?
Yes, it would.
Okay, so if it's 10:17, that backs us up to about 8 o'clock, right? Somewhere right in there?
Yes.
All right. And as I understand it, when you last saw Mr. Spector the following morning, it was close to or on the other side of 2 a.m., correct?
That's correct.
So if we do simple math, which I can do, we've got about a 6-hour period. Is that right?
Correct.
And it was over this entire 6-hour period that you answered Mr. Jackson's questions regarding what it was that you and Mr. Spector ate, correct?
Correct.
And over this entire 6-hour period, what it is that you and Mr. Spector drank, correct?
Correct.
And as I understand it also, you and Mr. Spector did go to the lavatory on several occasions at
Correct.
different locations, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Jackson directed your attention to the first meeting with Ms. Clarkson, and you said that she was very professional, correct?
Yes.
You then indicated that after the gentleman with the dreads spoke with Ms. Clarkson, she was still very professional, but she was more friendly, correct?
Correct.
All right. And by more friendly, would it be fair to characterize more friendly as more friendly towards you, more warm towards you? Or would it be more correct to say that she was more friendly in the sense of more warm towards Mr. Spector?
Maybe more friendly wasn't the right term. She was more open to letting us in.
Okay. Did it appear to you, let me ask you this, did it appear to you that Ms. Clarkson, after this gentleman spoke to her, was more interested in pleasing Mr. Spector?
Objection. I call for speculation.
Sustained.
When you and Mr. Spector were escorted over to the couch, is it correct that Miss Clarkson started fluffing up the pillows about the two of you?
I cannot remember that detail.
Okay. Now, Mr. Jackson was asking you questions about how Mr. Spector requested Lana to come over so that you could be taken down to the vehicle and taken home, correct?
That's correct.
And when Mr. Jackson was doing that, he was banging on the podium like this. And I wanted to ask you, was Mr. Spector banging on the table or anything else like this when he asked Lana
No,
to escort you down? He wasn't, was he?
no,
He wasn't being mean.
Indicating knocking on the podium.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
And he wasn't being mean to her or demeaning to her in any way, was he?
I did not feel so, no.
Okay. He didn't call her any uncolored names or use any use colorful language with her, did he?
No,
You said that in the past, when Mr. Spector would ask for things, he would get them, correct?
yes,
Okay. I want you to just sort of think about those experiences. When he would ask for things, what I was impressed with by your answer was you meant things like if he wanted some water, or if he wanted some iced tea, or if he wanted a Diet Coke, or if he wanted a chopped salad, or if he wanted prime rib. Am I correct?
that's correct.
You said that you always, when you had been in Mr. Spector's presence, viewed him to be very gentlemanly and very friendly, correct?
Yes,
So when he would ask for things, other than this evening that we're talking about, but in the past, when you were with him on the other 6 occasions, and he would get things, was it? Steal that car across the street, and were requests that you felt to be appropriate at the time, and when he would ask for something, whoever he asked it of would bring it to him.
that is correct.
And he would ask in a nice way, wouldn't he?
Yes, you would.
He's a very mannerly individual, isn't he?
Yes,
Please, thank you, you're welcome. Those are words and phrases that occupy his vocabulary when he's out with a lady like yourself, isn't that true?
yes,
And Mr. Jackson spent some time here on Redirect asking you about fatherly. And I think you described it as not in the sense of your own blood-related father, but more in a paternalistic way. Is that a fair statement?
that would be fair.
Okay. You used a phrase, you said, it seemed to you and Susan that Mr. Spector got a kick out of you. I believe that's a phrase you used.
Yes.
Just if you would take a moment, share with the jury what you meant by that.
Oh. Well, Susan and I were pretty crazy. And we were working on a lounge act. And we would go up to Philip's house and she would bring her guitar and we would do some of our numbers for him, which were clearly terrible. And he would sit there very nicely, just sort of nodding. And at the end of it, he wouldn't tell us to shut up or throw us out. He would simply say, "Have you thought about this song?" And he would lead us to something else. It was just very kind and something like a dad would do when he saw his kid's ballet recital.
I take it from this then that Mr. Spector from time to time would make suggestions to you and Susan about your act,
Yes,
and in other instances regarding other matters of life, correct?
yes,
But it was always done in a very paternalistic way and a very nice way.
it was, which is why we spent the night that night.
And we'll get to that in a moment. So really, if I'm hearing it right, what you're saying when you use the word fatherly, you're really talking about an attitude that Philip had with you and Susan, isn't that correct?
Yes,
Okay. An attitude of somebody who was concerned, caring, and protective, correct?
I found him very protective.
Mr. Jackson, in his questioning, suggested that you knew that possibly Mr. Spector and Rami Davis were in a dating relationship, correct?
Correct.
This was something that was told to you.
Correct.
But you don't know from your own firsthand knowledge, it's just what's been told to you, correct?
That is correct.
And when you were talking with Mr. Jackson a moment ago along these lines, it came to me that you did not feel that you were intruding or inserting yourself between Ms. Davis and Mr. Spector if in fact there was a romantic relationship. You were going out for a drink with an old friend, correct?
Yes.
It was purely platonic, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay. There was never any suggestion or indication that you or Philip had romantic. And that's why you were willing to go out with Philip after Miss Davis.
Correct.
I just have one other quick thing I wanted to chat with you about. The evening that you and Susan went to the house and you brought pizza and wine for you to recall what it was. Do you recall, was that an evening when he spoke with you about the death of his son?
Objection, relevance.
Only to focus attention. I'm not going to let it go anywhere else. The objection is overruled. If that refreshes your recollection, you may answer that.
I had that conversation with him at some point, but I don't know if it was that night.
Okay. That's a very sensitive subject for him, isn't it?
Objection, relevance.
I'm going to sustain it. I told you that was done for one purpose, to set a date. Given her answer, that's as far as it's.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan, and hopefully you'll be able to go down.
Redirect.
And just let me know.
You may. Rather than make the jurors wait, rather than make the witness just sit there, I have to go in chambers with counsel to discuss a matter, and with that in mind, we're going to take a brief recess. Keep in mind the admonition. We'll call you as soon as we're ready. If you wish, you may stay down rather than, we're going to need you again. Okay? All right, thank you.
Water courts again in session.
All right, the parties.
Quiet, please.
Sir, I hope I'm not interrupting court with your conversation, okay? When the bailiff says quiet, she means quiet. If you'd like to remain, you can. If you insist on talking when I'm out, you're gone. The parties are present, the witness is present, the jurors and the alternates are not present. Ma'am, we're going to be asked some questions outside the presence of the jury about a certain incident that took place so I can evaluate it. You may proceed, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Sullivan, I'm not going to take a whole lot of your time, but I want you to explain to the court about the incident concerning, on redirect examination, I think I asked you a couple of questions about the incident concerning when you spent some time at the castle, at the Alhambra Castle. Do you remember that?
Yes.
All right. I'd like you to explain to the court what happened the next morning after you and Susanna woke up, how you ended up getting out to your car.
Excuse me. We were in the foyer saying our goodbyes, and Philip said he had to go upstairs. So he disappeared. And when he came down the stairs, he was holding a, I don't know if it was a shotgun or a rifle, but it was clearly a big gun. It was just pointed down at his side. And he came walking down the stairs, and I looked at Susanna, she looked at me, and we're like, what the hell's that? And we said, what's that for? And all he said was protection. He kept walking down. We walked out to our cars. We got in. We thanked him for a nice evening, and we drove off.
Do you remember having any conversation with Susanna about this incident?
When we got in the car, we're like, what was that?
Did it make you nervous?
Well, I don't like guns, so it was totally out of the blue. So I guess it did make me nervous.
Was there any reason, Ms. Sullivan, that you felt, based on your perspective, I don't want you to speculate about Susanna, I don't want you to speculate about Mr. Spector. Was there any reason at all for you to feel that you needed protection, to use Mr. Spector's word, with a gun at that point in the morning when you were about to leave?
There was no reason.
Did this seem, this display of a shotgun, for lack of a better phrase, seem out of place given the tone and tenor of what was going on that morning?
Well, at that time, whenever Philip did go out in public, he had a bodyguard with him who did have a gun. So the whole protection thing was not out of character, but being up in his gated house with the shotgun was sort of strange.
You said that Mr. Spector disappeared and then reappeared with the gun, correct?
Correct.
Did he say anything before he left to go get the gun?
Just, I'll be right back.
How long was he gone?
It seemed like a long time because we commented to each other, what the hell is he doing?
When he reappeared, did he say anything about the gun?
Not until we asked him. He was completely silent.
Just showed up with the shotgun or rifle in hand?
Yeah.
You indicated that it was pointed down, correct?
Yes, it was.
Once he came down the stairs with the rifle or long gun in hand, what did he do with the gun as you began to walk out toward your car?
It was just in his hand, like it could have been a shopping bag or a purse or something. Just had it in his hand.
Did that scare you?
Objection statement.
Overruled.
I never thought he would use it, but I don't like guns.
Okay, let me ask you again. I'm not asking you to speculate about whether you were specifically in fear for your life. Just generally, having the gun in Mr. Spector's hands at that point in time in the morning, were you scared?
Yes,
Did it make you nervous?
yes,
Did it make you uncomfortable?
yes,
Is that why you inquired about it? Like, what the hell is that?
yes,
And that's when you got the response from Mr. Spector, protection.
yes,
And that was the singular response that you got. He gave no other explanation as to why he had armed himself with a shotgun or a long gun, correct?
correct.
Was that the last time you had seen Mr. Spector socially until the February incident, February 2nd incident?
Yes.
Yeah, just one more.
Amen.
What was, I just thought of something as I set my book down. That next morning, you had had at least a few hours sleep, correct?
Oh, yeah.
When you woke up, were you still feeling the effects of alcohol? Were you inebriated?
No, I felt fine.
Did it appear that Mr. Spector was inebriated?
No,
Do you know one way or the other, or are you just speculating?
Objection, asking this
Overruled.
argumentative.
Overruled.
I'm just asking what your impression of Mr. Spector was based on facts that you have in front of you. Do you have an impression one way or another whether or not he was still inebriated from the effects of alcohol the night before? Do you know?
Excuse me, objection, that misstates the evidence.
Sustained.
Do you know what his state of sobriety was the next morning when he armed himself with this long gun?
he was very quiet.
Okay. Do you know what his state of sobriety was?
Objection, she's answered the question. He may not like the answer, but that's the answer.
Excuse me, she didn't answer the question directly, so it's appropriate to re-ask it. You may ask.
It never crossed my mind that he might be inebriated.
Okay, thank you. I think that's all I have.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Ms. Sullivan, I just have a few questions here, I hope, for you this morning. I want to clarify something. First of all, Mr. Spector never pointed this weapon at you at any time that morning, did he?
That is correct.
Never pointed the weapon at Suzanne.
That is
right?
correct.
As I understand your testimony, at all times this weapon was at his side, pointed down. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you had been with him the entire evening before, correct?
Correct.
You spent the night, right?
Correct.
You didn't ask to leave.
Correct.
Okay. He treated you like a gentleman. You had your own separate room. Susan had her own separate room, correct?
Correct.
He didn't at any time invade your privacy that evening, did he?
Oh, no.
And he was up the next morning. You were up the next morning. Susan was up the next morning. And the two of you were getting ready to leave, right?
That's correct.
And you told Philip you were ready to leave.
Yes.
Okay. And that's when Philip left your presence for a period of time and came back and had the weapon, correct?
That is correct.
Now, as I understand it, you can't say whether it was a rifle or a shotgun. You just knew it was a weapon.
That's correct.
All right. And Mr. Jackson asked you, about this whole gun thing, and you indicated that you didn't find it out of character for Philip because he had a bodyguard that carried a gun, and so the whole protection thing wasn't out of character for him. It wasn't strange, correct?
No.
Okay. And you said you never thought he would use it, correct?
Correct.
You indicated to Mr. Jackson that you were scared, you were nervous, and you weren't comfortable. You were uncomfortable, correct?
That's correct.
But that wasn't because of Philip. That was because of the fact you just don't like weapons, right?
That's correct.
There was nothing this man did at any time that made you feel uncomfortable, correct?
That's correct.
With a weapon.
Correct.
There was nothing he did that made you feel nervous or scared with a weapon, correct?
Correct.
It was the mere fact that you don't like guns, right?
Yes.
And you never felt threatened by him with this weapon. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
In fact, you were interviewed, as I understand it, by Detectives Fournier and Tomlin. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I think we figured that you were interviewed on, I think we believe it was February 7th of 03. Is that right?
It was soon after.
Okay. And in talking to them, you described generally and in a short manner this incident that we're talking about here, correct?
Yes.
And you told them that you thought it was the funniest picture in the whole wide world, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
And that's what you thought when you saw it, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much, and nothing further.
Thank you. Redirect.
Actually, what you said, Ms. Sullivan, was the fact that he escorted us out with a gun was to me a little silly. Isn't that what you said?
I don't remember that, but if you have it in writing, that's what I said.
Okay, I don't mean to tax your memory. Council page, Bates 4816 and 4817.
Just
Sure.
a moment. Line, please.
Lines 9 through bottom, and then take a look on 4817 at lines 23 through 24.
That's fine.
Actually, backing up to line 7. Do you remember this exchange? And I realize we're asking you about an interview that took place a while ago. I just want to read a question and answer dialogue between you and Detective Fournier and ask you if you recall this dialogue.
Objection, no foundation. She hasn't indicated that she hasn't. In fact, she said yes.
Mr. Jackson.
She said she didn't recall that. If it's written down, she may have said it.
The
Well, then
objection.
the proper procedure would be to lay the foundation for refreshing memory.
Excuse me. If you look at this, what it might refresh your recollection as to what your actual words were.
Yes.
All right, the objection is overruled. You may approach.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Read to yourself from about line 7 through the bottom of the page, and then the entire page of page 139, if you wouldn't mind. Let me know when you're finished.
Yes.
Ms. Sullivan, did you indicate under questioning by Detective Fournier that you believed that it was relatively silly for Mr. Spector to have armed himself just to the car?
Yes.
Did you indicate that you felt like, if in Mr. Rosen's questioning, you felt funny were you referring to the ridiculousness of Mr. himself simply to walk you?
Well, we thought it was fun.
Did you think the gun itself was funny?
I don't think guns are.
Did you think, and of course, the gun was at all times in your presence in Mr. Spector's hands, correct?
Correct.
You didn't touch the gun?
No.
Miss, Susanna
Susan.
didn't touch the gun?
Correct.
Is that correct? And
That one.
Thank you. Ms. Sullivan, when Mr. Jackson was refreshing your memory a moment ago about, to you, the whole thing seemed a little silly. What did you mean when you used the term, the whole thing seemed a little silly?
You just had to be there. It came out of nowhere. He's walking down the stairs. I think he was wearing a plaid jacket because I remember thinking he looked like Elmer Fudd. The gun was bigger than he was. And he's walking down the stairs with a damn gun. What the hell's that for? Protection. It was just surreal, silly.
Okay, thank you.
I have a few questions. Had you ever spent the night there before?
No,
So this was the first time?
correct.
All right, I have nothing else. Anything from the people?
No, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
Nothing further.
All right, I'm going to ask you a favor. Would you step down and wait in the hallway? Do not discuss testimony with anyone, and then when we're done with legal argument, I'll bring you back.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll hear from the people.
Your Honor, I believe the defense has painted the picture of a defendant or of a figure of the defendant who was more of a father figure than anything else. There is substantial cross-examination on the idea that he was always gentlemanly. He pulled out chairs, he opened doors, he said please and thank you. He was very mannerly, almost chivalrous in his regard for Miss Sullivan. And it paints a picture that is very different than someone who, when the woman spent the night for the very first time, the only time in her life that she's ever been in his residence overnight, lo and behold, there's a gun that appears again. Granted, there are circumstances that are different from Ms. Clarkson's. There are circumstances that are different from the other 1101B incidents. However, it does bear on the defendant's propensity, that his specific desire when he has a woman in the house. He has immediate access to guns, and he utilizes those guns. Whether he threatened her with it or not is for the jury to weigh and balance. Certainly, we're not going to claim that he threatened her with it. Certainly, we're not going to claim that all the same factors were at play, as with Lana Clarkson, as with the other 1101B witnesses. But to paint the defendant in a light that he was just this fatherly figure, when was the last time you heard of a father walking his daughter to the bus station with a shotgun in his hand? I think it gives the jurors a false impression of who the defendant is. He had immediate access to a weapon, and he was willing to pull it out. And I think the overall circumstantial is that, in fact, this was his weapon, the weapon issue. He pulled it out, that he was willing to utilize it, which is the heart of the people's case.
Thank you. Defense.
I think I can be very brief about this. Let's sure we're all.
Here you go. You guys want one for Christmas? I get every one of you a Phil Spector shirt for Christmas.
small little episode that's been described to the court here this morning out of the presence, and what we've heard from the likes of, say, Ms. Ogden Hall or Ms. Melvin or Ms. Jennings or anyone else. It's a very different situation. There are no threats. The time setting is different. The situation is different. Facts are different. So I'm not he's offering it for, and I would also put into the argument 52, 1101, and also the question of materiality and the question of whether or not this is cumulative. I'm going to ask the court to keep this out. I don't think it's right. I think it's highly prejudicial, and it does not prove any of the government's case.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
The only thing I would answer Mr. Rosen's question, he's not sure what I'm offering it for. This is evidence that the defendant has immediate access to weapons when in his home and that he's inclined to arm himself. That's circumstantial evidence that he had immediate access to the 38 caliber Cobra, that he armed himself and ultimately shot Lana Clarkson through the mouth. That
Are you distinctly not on it under OB?
not.
All right, thank you.
The 352 and shut the door.
From those events. In this case, though, this witness, both directly by the prosecution and through other events, it doesn't make any difference, quote, who opened the door or who went there first. That's not the important thing. What's important is what's inside the house. And in this matter, this particular witness has basically indicated a certain relationship and a certain understanding of the defendant and a certain way he conducts himself. This incident is not consistent with that. And it goes to an overall picture of explaining it, although there clearly, because of the nature of the other events, there's some prejudicial value. The probative value far outweighs it as far as I'm concerned, and I will allow the prosecution to go into it, and the defense may counter it any way it wishes that's appropriate. With that in mind, let's bring the witness back in and let's bring the jurors in. And for the record, you have about this incident, apparently it was part of discovery. You did know about the incident because it was part of discovery. It's not a surprise.
No, we didn't. No, it was in the discovery.
Thank
both
you.
in the report and in the tape.
All right, thank you. You may be seated. Our president is here to forward. Mr. Jackson, you may resume.
Thank you, Your Honor. I want to draw your attention to the night that you actually Alhambra cast respect. You indicated that that may have been back as far as 1990.
Correct.
Okay. Time or that incident in mind, you explained to the jurors, and I don't want to go over it all again, how the evening progressed, and you ultimately, along with Susanna, spent the night. Is that right?
That's correct.
The next morning, after, make sure I make this clear, you did not spend the night in Mr. Spector's room romantically. This was, you had your own room, correct?
That's correct.
Susanna had her own room.
Correct.
The next morning when you awoke, did you see Susanna?
Yes.
Did you two, at some point, you and Susanna decide that you were going to go ahead and leave and go home?
Yes.
That next morning, did you see Mr. Spector?
Yes.
Where did you first make contact with Mr. Spector that morning?
Outside my room.
And tell me what happened after that.
When it was
After-
outside my room or?
Correct. When you made contact with him, let us know. We weren't there. You were. Explain to us what happened. When you made contact with Mr. Spector, did all go down?
Apparently I'd woken up first, so I started to get ready, took a shower, and then I wanted to wake everybody up. I did go to Susanna's room and just said outside her door, Susanna, Susanna, no answer. So I took my shower, peeked my head outside the door. I didn't hear any noises or anybody talking or anything. So then I thought I'll make as much noise as possible to try to get this party going. So I put on the blow dryer and bam, next thing you know, Philip was in my doorway and he said, "Where's Susanna?"
And what happened after that?
I said, I don't know. I don't think she's up. And then he disappeared.
At some point, did Susanna get up?
She did.
At some point, did you
As we were leaving,
and Susanna decided you were going to leave together?
she drove.
I was going to ask you, were you in the same car?
Yes.
As you and Susanna began to leave, what happened?
Philip, we were in the foyer, and Philip said, I'll be right back. And he went upstairs.
Do you know where he went?
I do not.
How long did he leave for?
It seemed like a while.
Did that seem familiar?
It just weird. We didn't know what he was doing.
Was it out of place?
I'm going to check. Vague. I'll
I'll ask a different question. Ms. Sullivan, where were you and Susanna when Mr. disappeared?
In the middle of the foyer,
Downstairs?
downstairs,
What happened as you waited upstairs?
Philip, what gun that I've described as either a rifle or a shotgun. I don't know. I don't know guns.
Do you know the difference between a rifle and a shotgun?
I don't.
Was it a long gun that a person normally would use two hands to carry?
Well, objection.
I think it's a pistol.
Yeah.
Okay. What, if anything, did you say when you saw Mr. Spector come down the stairs with this long gun?
Well, Suzanne and I looked at each other and just said, oh, we looked at him and said at the same time, what is that? Or what's that for?
What, if anything, was Mr. Spector's response?
He said one word. He said protection.
Were you uncomfortable having seen that gun?
Yes. I liked
Why not?
bad things happen when guns are around.
Did Mr. Spector may I have just a moment, Your Honor?
You may.
What happened after Mr. Spector got down?
Walked out with us.
Was Mr. Spector holding the gun down the whole time?
I believe he was.
It was pointed at the ground?
Yes.
You did not feel like you were being assaulted or threatened with the gun yourself?
Not at all.
You feel like Susanna was being assaulted or threatened with the gun herself?
No, I didn't.
Where was your car parked?
Directly in front.
And I said your car.
Her
I
car.
understand you meant her car. Correct. Okay. Was it in a motor court area?
Yes, it's a courtyard.
Okay, and the fountain there?
Yes.
So that's toward the back of the house.
Yes, it's the back, or technically the front.
Whatever, there's a
I
big
know,
fountain there,
yeah.
and the garage is that side, and there's a
Yes.
big motor court, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What did you see happen after you got in the car with Susanna? What did you see the defendant do?
He walked the other way.
What, if anything, did you and or Susanna say to each other after you got in the car?
Well, we were both very shocked by it, and we're just, what was that?
Was that last time you had seen Mr. Spector before this February 2nd, 2003 incident or date?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination or recross? Certainly.
This incident that you just told us about here, this occurred sometime in 1997, 1998, correct?
Correct.
And this occurred at the home, Spector's home, correct?
Correct.
And as I understand it, it's a large house, correct?
Correct.
All right. There's a fountain outside either the front or back door, depending upon who's describing it, correct?
Correct.
This fountain, was it going at the time that you left, do you recall, or when you arrived?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay, okay. So you couldn't help us with how loud it was, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, as I understand it, you spent the night, you had your own room.
Correct.
Suzanne spent the night, she had her own room.
Correct.
And during the course of the evening, Mr. Spector never invaded your room or Suzanne's room as far as you know.
Correct.
And when you woke up the next morning, you decided it was time to leave, correct?
Correct.
And so you started to get ready to leave by taking a shower, doing your hair, and cleaning up, right?
Correct.
And presumably Suzanne was doing the same thing. Because at some point you join up with her in the
Correct.
foyer and
Yes.
she's dressed and ready to go.
Yes.
All right. And you informed her to leave, correct?
Correct.
And Philip said, didn't say anything. He just disappeared for a short time, correct?
Correct.
And when he came back down, you saw him walking down the stairs?
Yes.
Okay. And your recollection is he had a rifle or a shotgun with him, correct?
That's correct.
Now, as I understand it, the rifle or the shotgun, whatever it was pointed down. That weapon, until you and Suzanne got in the car and left, was never, ever pointed at you, was it?
No, it was not.
It was never, ever pointed at Suzanne, correct?
Correct.
It was always pointed at the ground, correct?
Yes.
And it was always at his side, correct?
Yes.
And he never threatened you or Suzanne with that weapon at any time, correct?
That's correct.
Never pointed it at you, correct?
Correct.
Never touched you with it, correct?
Correct.
Never used it as a weapon to strike. He never spoke any menacing words to you at all. In fact, I think you said the only thing he said is when you asked him what for, one word, protection.
Correct.
When you got to the vehicle, you got in, correct?
Correct.
Suzanne got in?
Correct.
Do you recall who was driving?
Suzanne.
So you got in the front passenger seat,
Correct.
and when you turned, Philip was walking back in towards the house, correct?
Yes.
Away from you,
Correct.
with his back turned to you, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you've described this incident previously to the case agent, Detective Fournier, in this case. Isn't that true?
Yes.
And in describing this to him, you indicated that you thought the whole thing was a little silly, didn't you?
I did.
In fact, you even went on and indicated to him that you thought, and tell me if I'm wrong, quoting your words, it was the funniest picture in the whole wide world. Is that right?
That's right.
You made the comment to Susanna, or she made the comment to you once you were in the vehicle, what the hell was that all about, right?
Correct.
In kind of a jovial way, right?
Correct.
When you indicated that you became nervous and uncomfortable and scared, you weren't scared,
No.
nervous, person,
No.
you were uncomfortable.
No.
What brought you discomfort and nervousness, you just, at that time, and probably even present, don't like weapons, right?
That's correct.
And you don't like being around weapons.
That's
Whether it's a rifle or a shotgun or a pistol or a revolver or a semi-automatic, any kind of weapon, correct?
correct.
And for your purposes, your discomfort and concern
Whoops. And we were doing so good. We're almost done, too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, redirect.
Thank you. It wasn't anybody holding the shotgun. It was Phil Spector, wasn't it?
Yes.
And when you and Susanna finally left, didn't you say, quote, "What the hell was that?" I'm so glad we're out of there right now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Glad.
Thank you. Ms. Sullivan, there were no bodyguards there that morning, were there?
No.
I'll allow it.
Thank you.
Did he have a jacket, like a coat jacket like I have?
No.
What did he have on?
Some plaid thing.
Was there some cartoon character that came to mind when you saw him walking down the stairs?
Yes.
Why don't you tell the jury who you thought he looked like?
He looked like Elmer Fudd.
Okay. That was the last question. I don't know why it crashed again. But that was the last question. Did it remind you of a cartoon character or whatever? Yeah, he looked like Elmer Fudd. That was the last question. I'm trying to figure out. It says I have windows open, but I don't know which windows. I don't know what's going on. What in the world? Okay, I think that's my YouTube channel, and that's my stream board. Carla, you have 6 kids? Oh my God. Yep, that's a good reason to stop. Yep. Why did you start again? Under your upper lip? Upper lip? We do snuff here and it goes under your lower lip. And then we have the chewing tobacco, which don't really chew. I don't know why they call it chewing tobacco. Because it goes on your jaw. You like bite down on it in the rack. And then it just sits there. And then you gotta spit the juices out. You're not supposed to swallow the juice. Ugh, it's nasty. Upper lip, okay. I quit in, ouch. I want to say I don't remember what year. 94, maybe. I went to Venezuela with my church, and of course, I couldn't smoke on a missions trip. So I left my cigarettes at home. And at the hotel we stayed at, there was a cigarette machine, which they don't even have in America anymore. Well, this was back in the 90s. They may not have them in Venezuela anymore. I don't know. And I was like, and like the first night I was there, um, I had the room to myself because my roommate couldn't get off work that first night. So I had the room to myself, and I was like, I could smoke tonight because there's a cigarette vending machine. If nobody saw me, I could go smoke and go sneak and buy a pack of smokes and then smoke in my room. But I didn't. And so I went like a whole week. We were there without smoking. And then I got home and I bought a pack and I smoked. And I was like, why am I doing this? I went a whole week without them. I don't need them. And then I quit. And then Travis and I started dating, and he smoked, and I started smoking again because he smoked. Instead of trying to get him to quit, I started because he was doing it. Like, and it wasn't like I started when we first started dating. Like, we weren't even for sure we were gonna work yet. And I just started smoking, which was stupid. And then when he decided he was gonna quit, I couldn't. And he and the girls badgered me into quitting. One time they had this container full of beads. You know how little kids like all kinds of the different little crap things. They had these beads to make like friendship bracelets and stuff with. They hid my pack of cigarettes in this bead jar. And it fit down in the middle of these beads, and the beads were around it. You could not see them. I tore up their room looking for my cigarettes, and they were just standing there laughing their asses off at me. I'm like, where are my cigarettes? I was about to have a meltdown. I was so mad. And they finally gave them back to me. I was so And then eventually I quit cold turkey. And I'm glad I did, because what are cigarettes now? Like $12 a pack? That's how much a carton used to cost when I smoked. That was a carton of cigarettes. I cannot imagine paying that much for a pack of cigarettes now. I couldn't afford to smoke if I wanted to. I don't know how anybody can afford to smoke nowadays. It's ridiculous. Ah. You need to do to him what Travis did to me. Make him quit with you. Keep badgering him, because that's what they did to me. I kept smoking when he quit, and they kept badgering me. You need to quit too. You need to quit too. Just give me a hard time. I could do it. I did it. You can do it too. Only he did it cold turkey. So I had to do it cold turkey. I didn't get a patch or Nicorette gum or nothing. I switched to a vape, and I wanted to switch to one of the non-nicotine vapes, but I ended up just quitting. I didn't switch to the non-nicotine. You know, if you both taste like an ashtray, you don't taste it. You only taste it when the other person smokes and you don't. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break before we start the next one. So I will see you over there, guys. And if you're not going to be over there, I will see you tomorrow. You guys have a good day. And thank you to my mods. And I will see you later. Bye.